I thought my neighbor was harassing me. He thought we were best friends. When I moved into my apartment, I promised myself I'd be one of those quiet, invisible neighbors. No small talk, no drama, no borrowed sugar. That plan failed on day one. The first time I met my neighbor Mark, he waved at me like we'd known each other for years. Big smile, full eye contact, way too much enthusiasm for a hallway interaction. "Hey," he said, "you're finally back." I nodded politely, assuming he confused me with someone else. That was my first mistake. After that, Mark started acting like we were already friends, not acquaintances, not neighbors, friends. Every time I left my apartment, he somehow appeared. If I checked my mail, he was there. If I took out the trash, he was there. If I opened my door at 2 a.m. to grab food delivery, he was there barefoot, asking if I smelled pizza too. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Then the comments started. "Rough day today? Didn't sleep well? New shirt?" I never told him anything about my day. I never mentioned my sleep schedule. And I definitely never discussed my wardrobe with him. I assumed he was just observant. Then one night, I came home exhausted, barely functioning, and found a sticky note on my door. "Hope your presentation went well." I stood there for a full minute. I had given a presentation that day. I had not told a single person in the building. That's when I started getting uncomfortable. Over the next few weeks, things escalated. He started knocking on my door, just to check in. He left snacks outside my apartment. Once, he texted me, "Did you mean to leave your lights on? Don't worry, I turned them off for you." That message made my stomach drop. I hadn't given him a key. I didn't reply. I stopped answering the door. I avoided common areas. I genuinely thought my neighbor was harassing me. So I did what any normal person would do. I complained to building management. They listened patiently and said, "Oh, Mark." That was not comforting. They told me he was harmless, just very friendly, and suggested I set boundaries. Great. Love that. A few days later, Mark finally cornered me in the hallway. "You've been distant lately," he said, sounding genuinely hurt. "Did I do something?" I decided this was it. I was going to confront him. I told him, calmly but firmly, that his behavior made me uncomfortable, that the notes, the comments, the constant presence felt invasive. He stared at me in total confusion. Then he laughed. "Oh," he said, "you don't remember." That sentence scared me more than anything else. "Remember what?" I asked. He pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. It was us, standing together in the same hallway, smiling, with beers in our hands. "That was moving in night," he said. "You helped me carry a couch. We talked for like 3 hours." My brain went completely blank. He kept scrolling. More photos, texts, inside jokes. Apparently, on my first night in the building, I got drunk, met Mark, trauma bonded over bad landlords, and declared him my apartment best friend. I remembered none of it. "You gave me your number," he said. "You told me to look out for you." I felt sick. Everything clicked at once. The comments, the notes, the familiarity. He wasn't harassing me. He thought he was being a good friend. I apologized more times than I can count. Now we're normal neighbors. We wave. We occasionally talk. But every time he smiles at me, I remember that somewhere in the past, drunk me promised a level of friendship sober me never signed up for. I thought my neighbor was secretly living in my apartment. He thought it was shared storage. When I moved into my apartment, I didn't have much stuff. A couch, a bed, a desk, and a small storage closet near the front door that I barely used. That closet is the reason this story exists. At first, nothing seemed off. The apartment was quiet, the locks worked, and my neighbors were the usual background noise. Footsteps, doors, someone always cooking something that smelled better than my food. About 3 months in, I noticed the first weird thing. A box in the storage closet had moved. Not by much, just slightly turned, like someone had nudged it. I assumed I had done it myself and forgotten. I'm not exactly known for my attention to detail. A week later, it happened again. Same box, different position. This time I paused. I live alone. I don't invite people over. And I definitely don't reorganize storage for fun. Still, I brushed it off. Memory is unreliable, and I didn't feel like spiraling over a cardboard box. Then I found something that wasn't mine. A pair of shoes. They were sitting neatly against the wall inside the closet like they belonged there. Men's sneakers worn with dried mud on the soles. I stood there staring at them, doing mental inventory. Not mine, not anyone I know. Definitely not something I would buy. My first thought was maintenance. Sometimes they come in when you're not home, right? Maybe someone took them off while fixing something. But then I noticed something that killed that theory. The shoes were dirty in a recent way, not old dust. Fresh mud. Someone had worn them recently. I closed the closet and decided not to think about it. That was mistake number 2. Over the next few weeks, the closet slowly filled with more things. A jacket appeared, then a backpack, then a reusable grocery bag with cans inside. Nothing else in the apartment was touched. No drawers opened, no food missing, just the closet. I stopped opening it altogether. At this point, my brain had fully committed to the worst possible explanation. Someone had access to my apartment and was using it when I wasn't home. I checked everything. Locks. Fine. Windows. Locked. No signs of forced entry. I started paying attention to sounds. Sometimes I thought I heard movement when I came home. Sometimes I thought I heard breathing. Every noise became suspicious. I began coming home earlier than usual, hoping to catch whoever it was. I even considered setting up a camera, but part of me didn't want confirmation. It's easier to live with a vague fear than with proof. Then one evening, I came home unexpectedly early. As soon as I opened the door, I heard it. Movement. Not footsteps in the living room. Something softer, rummaging. My heart started racing. I stood frozen in the doorway, listening. The sound was coming from the storage closet. I didn't have a weapon. I didn't have a plan. The only thing I grabbed was a rolled-up magazine, because apparently my fight-or-flight response is polite confusion. I took one step inside, another sound. I cleared my throat and said, "Hello?" The closet door opened, and out stepped my neighbor, Kevin. We stared at each other in silence. He looked just as surprised as I felt, which somehow made it worse. "Oh," he said slowly. "You're home early." That sentence broke something in my brain. "What are you doing?" I asked. He blinked like the question hadn't occurred to him before. "I was just grabbing my jacket," he said, completely calm, from my closet, inside my apartment. I asked the only thing my brain could process. "Why's your jacket in my apartment?" Kevin looked confused, then embarrassed, then confused again. "This is your apartment?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Why wouldn't it be?" He pointed at the closet. "I thought this was shared storage." That's when everything stopped making sense. Apparently, when Kevin moved in, the previous tenant casually mentioned, "Oh yeah, that closet's kind of communal." Kevin took that at face value. No paperwork, no confirmation, just vibes. For months, he'd been using my closet as overflow storage. Shoes, jackets, emergency supplies. He never entered the main apartment, never touched my things, never even considered that this might be deeply unhinged behavior. "I didn't want to bother you," he said. "You seemed private." I was too stunned to be angry. We called building management together. They confirmed what I already knew. The closet was 100% mine. Kevin apologized over and over while removing his belongings one by one, narrating each item like it was a confession. "These are my winter boots. This is my rain jacket. That's not a bomb, it's just camping gear." When he finally left, the closet was empty again. So was my sense of safety. Now everything is technically fine. But every time I open that closet, a small part of me expects to see a man standing there, casually saying, "Oh hey, didn't know you'd be back yet."